implicit connotations. I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Indian left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jacobin, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballad or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Caviese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithm
But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, cut and paste a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. How's everybody doing? Hello, Adam. You know, I'm sure everybody has seen the report that came out from the State Department about the big Cuban communist conspiracy and the 43 people and organizations that they say are at the heart of the Cuban communist conspiracy. And one thing that's really is really worth noting is who isn't on it. Specifically, the Has and the American Communist Party, and of course Caleb Muppet and the Creepy Pricks International. Neither of them apparently are part of the communist threat. Okay, I seem to have moved up in the world of spam bots. This is the second one. Yeah, we're blocking that user. Jesus, that is a wall of text, too. So, I just thought that was kind of interesting. So, it turns out that Van Jones, you'll remember Van Jones from laughing at the atrocities in Gaza and then getting exposed as being on the take of a pro-Israel propaganda organization at the same time as he was accusing other people of doing propaganda for Iran just because they were pointing out the genocide in Gaza. Well, it turns out he has a YouTube channel. He has 4,000 subscribers. I just love that. This is a guy who was he was actually fairly prominent in the Obama administration. He gets on TV fairly often to have opinions that suck, that really do suck. And he has 4,000 fucking subscribers. That's, I mean, I have a little over 400, but 4,000 is nothing. Like, fucking Xanderhole has more. Like, even the least popular dickheads that we look at on this stream have more subscribers than pro-Israel propaganda man Van Jones. He has some thoughts on the whole DSA thing. And I thought we might just kick this off by having a look at his DSA thoughts, because they are high level. Let me know if I need to make any audio adjustments, of course. And let's get started.
Socialists are wiping out Democratic Party establishment candidates.
The Democratic Socialists are celebrating another win.
Not just in New York City now, but also in Colorado.
Socialist takeover. If only.
From here to New York, all the way to across the country, DSA is saying that its members...
All the way to across the country. How's that work? I didn't know across the country was actually a location.
Has grown.
Some people on the left are ecstatic. Some people in the middle are freaking out.
Yeah, the middle, of course, means the right. And the left, in this case, mostly means the center.
Both sides need to calm down. I want to talk about it.
Oh, okay, and I'm sure we've all just been waiting on tenterhooks for Van Jones's opinion on this. At least his 4,000 subscribers.
Joe on Substack.
I've got some harsh things to say about the Democratic Socialists, but before we get into that, let me use this video to level set.
Okay. Part 1, why to calm down. Part 2, why to freak out. Oh, this is just looking great. He's got a part 2. This is a 9-minute video. He's divided it into parts.
Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that Mamdani-backed candidates in New York City wiped out the establishment early.
I mean, see, this is a thing that has been very big in the media. This whole thing where they say they're Mamdani backed, like that is really the salient point. Just not what they stand for, not what they at least claim to be standing for, but the fact that Mamdani, waved his fucking wand, that he's the kingmaker, as opposed to them just having ideas that sound good to people.
Here this summer, and then recently in Colorado, same thing. And so I think everybody needs to take a little bit of a step back now.
You said that like 5 times now. I think we all know that we're supposed to be calming down.
This is an exciting time. It's in some ways a troubling time, but it's also
in some ways a troubling time. Like, I mean, I would say in a lot of ways it is an extreme, like, who came up with that description of the time we're living in? It's an exciting time, and also in some ways it's troubling. Like, okay, you've got the US trying to start fucking World War III over because they don't want to admit defeat to Iran. You got a genocide that he's getting paid to pretend isn't happening. Though apparently that money don't buy subscribers, because 4,000 for a guy who gets on Bill Maher? Wow. I mean, that's something. That's really something. I mean, if you like that how the hell you come to that for the way you would describe this time we're living? I would have said like fucking horrifying.
A repeat of a number of things that we've seen happen in the Democratic Party time and time again. So let me just walk you through.
Well, I mean, if he's talking about the fact that if somebody shows up who seems to provide, who on the like Democratic ticket, who seems to provide some alternative to the right-wing dogshit policies that the entire rest of the political class is insisting are the only thing that can even be up for discussion, yeah, we've seen that a lot. And the Democratic Party benefit heavily from it. They complain about it, but it is their life support system.
Some historical context here, so that maybe both sides can be a little bit more sober.
Yeah, you know that this is a lib take because the sheer amount of both sides.
Their feelings and analysis. Number 1, the Gaza effect. A lot of the socialist
I can't wait to hear what this guy has to say about Gaza.
That are coming to voice and coming to power, criticizing and raising concerns about the war in Gaza.
Oh, of course, the war in Gaza. Like, there's been a fucking so-called ceasefire for months now. And the result of the ceasefire is only that Israel and the US are murdering fewer people. I don't think you can actually call it a war when there's literally, at this point, there is only one side fighting. There's only one side shooting. The other side, like if you look at what the resistance factions are doing, they're issuing strongly worded statements demanding that the so-called Board of Peace fucking do something, and that the international community condemn, etc., and themselves condemning and exposing the atrocities that are being committed. But they're not fighting back at the moment. They have clearly decided that this is just not the time to do it, because probably at the very least people are still getting more food and getting killed less than they were before the so-called ceasefire, and so they don't feel that they can that they're in a position to sacrifice that. That's what it seems to be. It seems to me, anyway.
Now, there's a lot of ways that they're doing that. Is they can be putting American Jews at risk.
Oh, really? See, I would have thought that what puts American Jews at risk is when people like Van Jones and other pro-Israel propagandists use Jews as human shields for this shitty, fucking murderous, racist regime. I thought that I thought that's what's putting us at risk. But Van will tell us. He'll put me right. He's an ex-Maoist.
Talk about that later.
Very ex. It's been a long time.
But I do want to point out, it's not the first time a young generation has come to voice out of their concern for a war.
Out of their concern for a war. Well, I mean, the amount of piss week that he streams into this.
Vietnam War produced a whole wave of young people who saw that war. They saw it on their television sets.
I mean, they were also being drafted and sent to it. I don't think they were just watching TV.
Color television sets, which was new technology at the time, and they were appalled and outraged. They took.
Wait, he thinks that young people were just the reason that young people were against the war. It was just they were watching it on TV. Is he just gonna leave out the whole conscription thing?
The streets, and the dividing line between are you for or against what's happening in Vietnam really
what's happening in Vietnam
in a major way. Some of the people in those protests, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton.
Oh God, yeah. Whose first date? This is their own account of it. Was breaking a strike. They were crossing a picket line.
And, you know, within 20 years, some of those young protesters were in the White House. You get Bill Clinton in part because of the young people protesting against a war in Vietnam.
Well, I mean, you mostly get Bill Clinton because a lot of some of those people realized that there was much more money on being the warmongers than opposing them.
And then my generation, Generation X, and some of the millennials were appalled by the Iraq War and George W. Bush taking us into that war. And you had a lot of young...
Taking us into it. As if that is such an interesting way of putting it, because there wasn't a war to take us into until the U.S. started it.
And people come out in the streets, including myself, against that war.
Yes, the farther back you go with Van Jones, the less cringe he is.
And in that context, a young guy named Barack Obama went to a rally and opposed the war.
Oh, I mean, not really, though. And he definitely did not oppose the war once he was in the White House, because he continued the war every single year he was there.
He became president of the United States, and Hillary Clinton in 2008 did not become president of the United States.
Probably shorter than a lot of people would like to think. Because the thing is, people, I mean, there is a material aspect to all of this, and the reason he, you know, ends up in the White House, and Barack Obama, he was in the Obama White House, and Obama just completely chucked him under the bus, because some white supremacist assholes at Fox were like, hey, Van Jones used to have good opinions. That's horrifying. And Obama was like, fuck, no, we're not going to have anyone who ever had anything good to say. We're kicking him out, don't worry. And he was just gone. He was going to be the green jobs czar. The absolute high point of his career was that for like 5.5 minutes.
Because she supported the war at first.
And continued to support the war. She didn't support the war at first.
So this cleavage between an older generation, Hillary Clinton, and a younger generation represented by Barack Obama came out of, again, concern about a war.
God, I mean, the fucking level of sanitizing. I mean, I haven't seen this much sanitizing going on since the first couple years of the pandemic, when people are actually worried about getting it and spreading it. I mean, the amount of fucking Purell he is dumping over all of this could cause shortages. I would encourage people to stock up, because by the time this video is over, there will be none on the shelves.
And now we have the Gaza war. That's having
the Gaza war.
A similar impact on the Democratic Party. Older voters have a more complex view.
Oh, it's a more complex view. See, when you're in favor of genocide, when you're in favor of aggression, it's a more complex view.
Of Israel in the Middle East, given our experience. But younger people are looking at their phones and they're seeing...
Wait a second, okay. Oh, he's trying to say... that, like, Gen Xers, because of our experience... What the fuck is Gen Xers' experience? What experience do Gen Xers have that supposedly immediately makes us think... I mean, this is bullshit. Him trying to make this a generational thing to the extent that he's doing it is just bullshit. It's bullshit in the case of the Vietnam War, too. There were plenty of, like, 40 and 50-somethings actually opposing that, too. I mean, Howard Zinn and Noam Chomsky were very prominent in that fucking movement, for example, and neither of them was a spring chicken at the time. Amongst many others. But... like, what experience makes us think it's complicated? Because, actually, if you look at the polling, the first generation actually of Jews in the U.S. is to really get disgusted with Israel since 1967 was Gen X. Was the people who were 30 and under in about 2009, 2010, after the caste-led massacre in Gaza. And this is why you don't get all that many polling organizations asking Jews in the U.S. what they think about Israel, because they don't like the answers that they get. So, I mean, to try to make this a Gen X versus Gen Z thing or something, what?
On their new technology, images that they find appalling. And for them,
it's not
black and white. And
wait, okay, so if you're gonna say that the systematic extermination of a couple of million people with openly announced intent is not black and white, if that isn't something that you can take a strong stance against, I think you owe us some detail on that. I mean, other than your fucking paycheck.
You can defend in any way what's happening to the people in Gaza. You're on the other side of a moral line for them.
Well, yeah, you're on the other side of a moral line for most fucking people, as it turns out. I mean, okay, and he's such a fucking coward that he's not going to try to defend anything. And notice he's just making it 100% about Gaza, as if that was the only thing any of these people stood for. I mean, none of, they actually, if anything, don't have the best positions on that. He's just leaving out the fact that they're also for things that people have just been demanding in their majority for a very long time, like healthcare.
And the same way that Vietnam gave us Bill Clinton.
I don't think you can blame Bill Clinton on Vietnam. I think that is very unfair to the Vietnamese people. They did not ask.
And Iraq gave us Barack Obama.
2003 to 2011? Oh, he's doing that because he is sticking with the convention that by redefining combat operations during the occupation of Iraq as stability operations that ended the war, and replacing a lot of the troops with mercenaries. I mean, the earliest you could possibly say that war ended would be like 2017, 2018, but actually Iraq is still occupied. That's why the resistance in Iraq, ever since the U.S. started aggression against Iran, has been just pounding U.S. occupation bases in Iraq, because it's never ended. The occupation is still going on.
In some ways, Gaza has given us Mamdani and all these others.
Nothing in Palestine happened before Nothing in Palestine happened before fucking 2023.
This is something we've seen before. Another thing that we've seen before, there's a physics to politics.
Oh, wow. You can tell that's organic chemistry. That's organic. Like, if you're gonna do physics, why you got organic chemistry up on there?
And sometimes when things swing too far in one direction, they then swing far back in the other direction.
Yes, because that's just pure physics.
And we saw that again very recently with the Tea Party movement.
God, this is the second time I've heard somebody talk about that shit just in the past couple of weeks, as if it was actually a movement. It was 500 people. It was nothing. If the media hadn't covered the shit out of it, nobody would have even known about it. It was just a Republican Party rebranding effort, because after 2008, after the Bush administration, Bush's brand, the brand of everybody associated with the Bush administration, was so fucking toxic, they needed something new. And that was the Tea Party movement.
President Obama was elected in 2008, and then 2009, you saw this swing to the right with the Tea Party movement, marching, protesting, demonstrating.
That's not the Tea Party. Fuck off. This is not a Tea Party protest here. This is much more, I'm not sure what that's stock footage of, but there are more people in this picture than there were at any time in the entire fucking Tea Party, at least in terms of active participants.
Calling Obama a socialist and actually dragging Obama somewhat to the right. The Tea Party was so powerful that Barack Obama tried to cut a deal with them.
I mean, no, they weren't actually. And the reason that Congress actually... I mean, this is such a fascinating way of doing this. Because he's leaving out the part where the reason the incumbents generally lose midterms is that everybody's disgusted with them. They win because people are disgusted with whoever was there before. Or they're disgusted with whoever is the alternative. And often they will have at least made some concessions to popular sentiment in order to successfully ride that wave of disgust. And then by the time the midterms roll around, it becomes very clear they're not going to do any of that shit. And so the same people who showed up to decide the election for the incumbent don't. Or when it's a Republican in the White House, the same people who were too disgusted by the entire thing to actually even go out and vote in the presidential election are appalled enough that they go and vote in the midterms in order to, at the very least, weaken that sector of the far right.
In the summer 2011, to maybe cut $1 trillion in middle-class programs just to get them off his back.
I mean, they weren't... He had a fucking majority. Wait, 2011, okay, is that post... I think that is post-midterm at that point. Yeah. But, no, he didn't. He did that because he wanted to. If you actually if you read his fucking book, the book he published before getting into Congress and becoming a president and everything, this was always what he wanted to do. He wanted to do some sort of a grand bargain and to bring in right-wing politics, and he knew that the only way he could do that to, move things to the right, and he had to do that in a way that made it look like his hand was being forced.
That never happened. Why not? Because in reaction to the Tea Party, another movement on the left emerged. Occupy... That
isn't it. That isn't... What the... In reaction to the Tea Party... No. No, there was, first of all, it was in reaction to the bailout. It was in reaction to the global financial crisis and the bailout. That's why it was Occupy Wall Street. Because Wall Street had just been gifted all this money with zero accountability, and while everybody else was being left to hold the bag. And people were pissed off about it. It wasn't a reaction to the fucking Tea Party. Shut the fuck up.
By Wall Street. And you had young people taking to the streets, protesting, saying, hey, the Tea Party...
And again, with the young people thing. None of this was just young people.
It's too far to the right. We want things to move back toward the left. And guess what? When they did that, they broke a lot of taboos.
This is such a ridiculous... Wow, like, he really does not have any excuse to get this thing that wrong. I mean, this is like when he was in the White House, the reaction to the
in the Democratic Party. Up until that point, because of Bill Clinton and Barack Obama's moderation,
what he means by that is the fact that they were solidly on the right wing.
Couldn't call for class warfare in Democratic Party. You'd be called a socialist, you'd be called a communist. You could.
Oh, yeah, so good things.
Couldn't say tax the rich. You couldn't do those type of things. It was kind of a no-no.
Yeah, I mean, it still is, because the party is still controlled by the rich, as all politics in the U.S. is.
But here comes these young people with Occupy Wall Street. And they said, no, there's something called income inequality. People hadn't heard that term.
Yes, people had heard of that fucking term. Wait, so Occupy said, wait a second, there is income inequality. That is not how any of this worked. It wasn't. In fact, this is a word that actually you hear in think pieces trying to explain Occupy without actually talking about what the kind of politics that was actually being espoused in Occupy, which admittedly is difficult because it ran the gamut. As anyone who remembers those times and remembers those discussions online and off, I mean, there is a reason that Occupy is the source of a lot of sort of prominent left-leaning content creators, and also a big part of the origin story of a lot of far-right figures, like, say, Tim Pool. Well, there is a foundation that does propaganda for Israel that's funding him. I mean, this is PragerU grade. I mean, this is pure slop. It is Prager slop, because there's no attempt, there's what is supposed to feel like there's analysis going on, except there isn't any. Occupy was a response to the Tea Party. Literally the first time I've ever heard anyone say that.
There's something called the 1%, the rich, versus the 99%. And they introduced a new vocabulary to talk about class, which had been pushed out of the Democratic Party on those terms for a generation or two. So you have this dynamic.
Okay, I mean, I will say that is an accurate thing he just said, and to say it was pushed out of there, I wouldn't say a generation or two, though. I mean, it was very much the Clinton people who, the DLC, the downloadable content, the Democratic Leadership Council, who really firmly pushed that stuff out. If you go back, even in the 1980s, Democrats sounded a lot more, well, like normal people than they did in the 90s or any time later.
Something moves too far to the right, here comes a movement to the left that breaks taboos. You see that dynamic happening now. Trump.
Okay, so the idea is that it's just organically things move too far. We don't know what too far is. I mean, what's interesting is since this is his framing, he mentioned a deal with the Republicans that Obama was trying to have, but that didn't have, as if that was actually the instigator for Occupy, which there's no way he doesn't know better. Anyone who is old enough to remember Occupy knows that this was about the fucking bailouts.
Has moved so far to the right and done so much crazy stuff that you now have an
it's just crazy stuff, like
equal and opposite reaction on the left,
It isn't an equal and opposite reaction, because the reality is, okay, is he calling DSA far left? Yes, he's calling DSA far left. Because if you were going to be honest about this, you would say that you had the far right and you had the center. Because if we're talking, if we want to make the center a meaningful concept, as opposed to just some bullshit that right-wingers use in order to make their views seem more palatable, we would have to base it on majority opinion, for example. Some kind of objective thing. And if you do that, what you would find is actually DSA is smack dab in the middle of it. But if you do that, then Van Jones and the horse he rode in on, they have to all admit they're right-wing, which they are. God.
Are breaking taboos. The Democratic Socialists of America used to be calling yourself the socialist was a taboo.
I mean, DSA, he's acting like DSA is new. DSA's been around for decades. And most of that time, nobody gave a fuck about them because they were just this, this weird centrist group that put out Dissent, which was a remarkably pro-Israel journal for people claiming to be socialists. I mean, DSA's been around for ages.
Certainly, saying that Israel shouldn't exist was a taboo. Behaving in ways that put Jewish lives at some risk and some peril.
Like what? Are you going to say something? You going to give us an example? Because so far you haven't.
Was a taboo.
What? Give an example.
Broken those taboos, and so.
Okay, how'd you break those taboos?
Politics has to now readjust and reassess in light of these two movements, MAGA now and DSA.
Oh yeah, I mean the both sidesing in this is amazing. So you have a full-blown fascist movement that's actually murdered people, and you have some people that occasionally try to get people elected in Democratic Party primaries who have some resemblance to majority opinion. Hey, Tomas, how you doing? And we're just gonna ask, so the movement is DSA. DSA, I mean, this reminds me of, this is going to be something probably a lot of people in the U.S. haven't heard of, the Pitchford inquiry. The Spy Cops inquiry, it's also known as, in Britain, where they had this big, they're still having it, I believe, this big public inquiry, chartered by the government, I think it was the Cameron government still, to look into the conduct of these cops who were sent to spy on leftist political groups and did all sorts of horrible fucked up shit in that context. God, I've been getting a lot of fucking spam in the chat to this time. Goodbye, link spammer. And the thing about it is, the way they set up the terms of reference was specifically to make sure that it could not uncover anything that wasn't already in the public domain. Like, you could not... if somebody had not already been identified as a spy cop before the inquiry, it would not come out in the inquiry. The whole thing was designed to ensure that nobody would be any the wiser on the big picture than they were in the first place. And in a way, that is what this looks like, because he's talking probably to people. I mean, not a whole lot of people. 4,000. I'm still just amazed that somebody that well known, who's got some big money behind him, has 4,000 subs. Like, they didn't even buy subs. I didn't even know he had a YouTube channel until somebody reacted to it. But you wouldn't want to actually, if you're talking to, fairly, you know, news literate liberals, they will probably have heard of DSA. But you don't want to necessarily tell them all about, you know, tell them everything that's going on and how DSA is only one part of it and what any of this is about and who all the different groups are and all that sort of shit. Because then, I mean, immediately a lot of those people will be much more interested in hearing more about that than they will be interested in hearing from somebody like fucking Van Jones. Okay, I literally already had that particular piece of spam. That exact spam. Why the hell, why am I suddenly getting targeted for this much spam? I don't even do fucking Van Jones numbers. Why is my chat getting all this spam? This is literally, this is I think the 6th spammer I've had to block this time. Usually it's just one. What the hell happened?
But we've been here before, Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street.
Like, this is wild.
Another thing that's important to keep in mind, in reaction to these wars over the many years, there's usually an ethnic group that winds up imperiled as a result of the conflict.
Well, usually it's the people that the U.S. are attacking. For example, when the U.S. attacked Iraq, it was Iraqis. When the U.S. attacked Afghanistan, it was people from Afghanistan. Now that the U.S. is doing genocide in Gaza, it's Palestinians.
In the United States. After Vietnam, Asian Americans were sometimes not safe.
Wait, what? Okay, wait, he is trying to suggest that the movement against murdering millions of Vietnamese people is somehow responsible for anti-Asian racism post-war? Is that what he just came out with?
There were actually Asian Americans who were murdered as late as the 1980s.
Oh, okay, and why? Okay, wait a second. And he's trying to say that this is something to do with the fucking movement against the Vietnam War?
That ethnic group was put in harm's way.
Wait, no, you don't get to just say that. He just blamed the movement against the Vietnam War for the murder of a guy we've known nothing about other than that he does not have a Vietnamese name. And that it wasn't even in a decade when that war was going on or when that anti-war movement was even going on. But he just blamed, he just straight up just said that the movement against the war against Vietnam, the Vietnam Solidarity Movement, was somehow at fault for anti-Asian racist violence in the 1980s, and he's not even going to try to explain why.
After 9/11 and with the Iraq War, Muslims were put in harm's way. Big rise of Islamophobia.
I mean, and it's never really dropped.
And you spent a decade after 9/11 trying to make sure that Muslims were safe, and they weren't.
You know, they were. Who was trying to make sure Muslims were safe? It sure as hell wasn't the government, because because that in that whole decade and continuing into now, the main thing that the government was doing in relation to the Muslim community at the federal level, I'm talking about, was sending in paid informants to try to find desperate and easily led people and people with mental illness in the community who they could entrap into going along with some fake ass terror plot, and then then have some big splashy headlines about how they averted a terrorist attack and all this bullshit. Like, the idea that who was actually trying to make sure the Muslim community is safe? Even now, it's mostly the Muslim community. It sure as hell never was the government.
All the way up through the Muslim ban from Donald Trump. This conflict is putting Jews in harm's way.
It's putting Palestinians in harm's way considerably more than that. I mean,
with synagogues being bombed, with even elected officials not being able to walk the streets.
Oh, what? Oh, this is wild. Okay, so, this is San Francisco Trans March. And, Assigned Media, Ethan over at Assigned Media wrote a really, really shitty piece on the subject, and I ended up, as a result, finding out all sorts of things. Okay, so here's the thing. Trans March, for 22 years now, has never been welcoming to politicians. It has always been a place where politicians who try to show up and, like, do a photo op at it get roasted. And Scott Wiener is a piece of shit. He was responsible for supporting a lot of bills, like a bill that actually bans teaching about the Nakba in California public schools, supported all sorts of state violence against anti-genocide protesters and stuff like that. And then he's running for office again, and at this primary campaign event, he was asked, he and his opponent were asked, is what's going on in Gaza a genocide? And his opponent said yes, and he didn't say anything. And he got absolutely roasted by the audience. Just completely cooked. And after that, he suddenly decided to acknowledge it's a genocide. At the same time, he still says he supports Israel. He still supports sending weapons to Israel. He still opposes BDS. He still thinks that it should exist as an apartheid state. And all this stuff. So, okay, so he's not just some random Jewish guy walking down the street. He is a politician who has blood on his hands.
And so you're seeing that dynamic again.
Oh, wait, okay. So he's just kind of lumping together, so a pro-genocide congressman gets kicked out of
elected officials not
a restaurant, and then 2 Israeli embassy staffers directly complicit in the genocide get shot, and one of them isn't even Jewish. It's worth noting, he's a fucking German Christian. And he's just kind of putting all that in there.
Streets.
Meanwhile, the amount of violence against Arabs and Muslims and the degree to which, immediately starting in 2023, people of Arab and Muslim background were just taken off air by major media outlets. I mean, the reason Mehdi Hassan has Zedio is because he got kicked off MSNBC. Because practically there was a huge, just total purge of Muslims and people with Arab names from the broadcast media, from the mainstream dominant media. There's been all sorts of extreme violence against Muslims. The level of state terrorism and state-sponsored terrorism against Muslims in this country has been extreme, and has a significant body count. And he's not talking about any of that because, again, he is paid by a pro-Israel group to do propaganda.
So you're seeing that dynamic again as well. And you have to take account in any movement for who is being put in harm's way, who is being made vulnerable. And that's got to become a part of the conversation as well. I think it's important for us to understand that for this generation of young Democrats, young progressives, their opposition to the Gaza war and
the Gaza war. Yeah, he will simply never call it a genocide because he would stop getting the money.
Minds is not about anti-Semitism.
Because it isn't.
For them, it's a moral test.
Because it is. It's the easiest fucking GED-ass moral test out there. Like, either you are for using toddlers for target practice and jerking off on TikTok in the clothes of women you just murdered, and all of the just absolutely hideous and horrific and traumatic shit that we have been watching coming out of Gaza for going on 3 years now. Either you, I mean, like, I would like to, he's acting like this is a complicated thing and it's hard and it's somehow unreasonable for people to say, no, this is a red line, you absolutely, this is not justifiable. But he knows that's not true. He knows it isn't unreasonable, because if he thought he could make this case, if he thought he could actually make the case that it was, you know, complicated and there were good reasons a decent person might consider consider it okay, he would be making that case. He's not, because he knows you can't look at this shit. Like the last time he did, his attempt was to just pretend it was all made up. And he got fucking roasted then, deservedly. I mean, him fucking laughing at all the footage of, like, fucking babies being murdered in Gaza by Israel. I mean, you'd think he would shut the fuck up about this now, but apparently not.
From that point of view, if you can see what's happening to people in Gaza and say that's okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, so go on.
You have failed a moral test for them. And
okay, so, what we've seen so far, these clips that he's put together, so far we have Israeli snipers murdered a young woman in her bed while she was asleep, and Israel and the U.S. systematically starving the people of Gaza to the point where they actually reached a level 5 famine. Yeah, okay, so Van Jones is saying that, acting like it's somehow unreasonable for somebody to say that this is a moral red line and no decent person could be for it. Well, okay, Van, let's hear it. Show us how you can make this, you can explain why this is good. Show us why this is something that reasonable people can have a moral disagreement about. Like, come on, go on.
they don't want to hear what else you have to say about anything else.
Yeah, exactly, because you are justifying a fucking genocide, that you're a piece of shit. Nobody wants to hear from you. And I mean, you can see Van Jones has 4,000 subs. Maybe he did buy subs. Maybe the subs he bought unsubbed.
And
he's still salty over the fact that people were mad at him for laughing at the murder of small children in Gaza and thinking it was funny.
That's, I think, something important for us to understand. At the same time,
we understand, but like, as you know, like it's a fucking lab rat or something like that. Like it's a sample. We have to understand it, because why okay, I want to understand the mentality that makes this difficult to understand, because that mentality needs to cease to exist. We need to build a society where that mentality has absolutely no fucking oxygen to thrive on, because that mentality is where you get Nazis from.
There is a way to oppose a war that does not put Jewish people's lives at risk.
Well, okay, so we're not, I mean, we're just accepting this idea that the opposing the genocide, which he won't call, that dare not speak its name, is putting Jews' lives at risk. But now he's going to lecture us and tell us the right way to oppose it. He doesn't oppose it. Wait, he goes on, he gets to be on the Young Turks? I hadn't seen that. This is his own channel.
That does not indicate or suggest that the only...
I don't think that the Young Turks would have him.
The country in the world that should be eliminated from the map
is anyone saying that?
The only Jewish country.
Yeah, but it's not the only Jewish country. It's not even, I mean, that, first of all, let's just be clear. Just because a state decides to declare itself something, that doesn't make it that. Like, Israel could it declares itself democratic too. It's not. It's a fucking dictatorship. It is an apartheid state. But it declares itself that. If we're going to say, like, he's the one sitting here making things dangerous for Jews by equating Jews and Israel. And he, of course, will not accept the possibility or acknowledge it that actually a shit ton of Jews are against it.
There's a way for the young people to handle their concerns better.
Handle their concerns better. Let's tell us about it.
think it's important for us to understand that for the young people, it's a moral issue.
For the young people. Yeah, it's just the young people who think that genocide is a moral issue. Wow, I mean, the level of patronization here. Yeah, it is just impressive. We have to understand, I mean, the young people think that when you systematically starve 2.5 million people and you say you would like to kill them all, they think that there's a moral issue there, and that's not something that's acceptable. Well, we really smart guys with 4,000 subscribers and who get roasted after appearing on Bill Maher, we smart guys, we know that actually that is a very complicated thing in ways that I'm not going to talk about, because I happen to know that if I talk about them, I'll get fucking roasted again, because there's no way you can talk about this stuff and make the point that he's so fucking, that he's pussyfooting around here without looking like an absolute monster. It is so impressively cowardly how he's doing this. He has to be like, well, we have to say that actually, you know, we have to understand that these young people have this weird idea that mass murder of defenseless people is bad, and that racism is bad, and we have to help them understand how you can oppose that without doing anything wrong. And we have to help them understand that this is not a moral red line like they seem to think it is. But I'm not going to make that point. I would like somebody else to make that point. It's like the fucking Blackadder Goes Forth, the World War I edition of Blackadder, where the whole thing is nobody wants to be the one to go over the top first. Nobody wants to be the one to leave the trench first. And Van Jones is, I guess, hoping that some other shithead will come out and actually make the article. I would argue that it's that those things that the term democracy, to the extent that it can be that it is meaningful, is incompatible with being an empire, precisely because an empire generally has a population, the majority of whom have absolutely no say in anything.
So what am I trying to suggest here? The people who think this is an unprecedented, unheard of development, this new movement to come about, and they imagine they're going to change all of human history because of this unbelievable breakthrough, might want to be a little bit more sober, because we've
I mean, I have to say, he's talking about being sober, and I'm sitting here thinking that you could not pay me to watch Van Jones sober again. Like, if you want me to watch Van Jones again, send me some weed or something, man. This is bad.
Before, and people who think this is the end of the American Republic.
I mean, think or hope
that this movement is so catastrophically bad for America that we'll never recover.
I mean, he's gone through this entire thing and he's never once actually said what any of these things stand for.
Should also probably calm down a bit. There's the physics of politics tends to create some of these swings, some of these dynamics. The most important thing for us to do,
I mean, let's just note, if we're gonna use this pendulum he's such a big fan of, that you would have to acknowledge that the swing of that pendulum, the range, the distance that pendulum is able to swing rightward, has been growing steadily since the 1990s. Well, since the 80s, we'll say that. Every decade, it has been able to swing a little bit further to the right.
Is to recognize the young people who are moving forward now are 80% to be celebrated, because at least they're not burning down the country. They're not calling for violence.
I mean, the ones that you most celebrate certainly are. And Van Jones has a problem with violence. He's just got done spending most of this time talking about how it's weird that anyone could suggest that the genocide in Gaza is a moral issue. And now he's acting like he's the one to be talking about violence? It sounds like you're kind of okay with violence, my dude.
They're not dropping out. They're not doing drugs. They are using
I mean, probably some of them are.
Our system as it was designed. They're using their voices. They're using their votes.
And they're getting the shit kicked out of them by the cops.
To make
they're getting smeared by big money campaigns like the one that is not able to get Van Jones's subs in the 5 figures.
They're different in their own mind. And the thrust of what we've got to say to these young people is, you're right, the establishment has let you down. MAGA...
You motherfucker, you are the establishment.
...is not doing a good job.
MAGA is not doing a good job. That is such a strong critique. I'm so glad that we have liberals with us in the fight against fascism. MAGA is not doing, fascism isn't doing so good. That is such a trenchant critique. That's a rallying cry.
The 20%, though, is to make sure that some of the nuttier, meaner, more...
does he realize that you can't actually see the text that he put up on the screen if you put it at this point because of all these fucking videos that he's put up on the screen over it? There was something to do with police, and there's something to do with Israel, and there are other words, and we never got to see the damn things. Let me see if I can back it up. No Israel. I mean, that's not 20%. I mean, actually, in the Jewish community, actually, that is, in the under 30s in the Jewish community, according to one recent poll, that is actually roughly 40%. It's worth noting. But okay. So now we're gonna see our other favorite guy. David Pac-Man. Wow, I ended up talking a very long time on a 9-minute video.
Watch the whole video.
Like, I actually just went basically an hour on that video. That video was fucking 9 minutes. Holy shit. That, I talk a lot. Wow, he's got a new background. And the rule of thirds has deserted him.
Listen to the whole segment before you send me hate mail.
I always find that I'm more inspired to send him hate mail after I hear him out.
When it starts that way, it's going to be good. Listen, the Democratic Party...
It's not going to be good, though.
...is showing the early signs of the same disease that destroyed the Republican Party.
Okay. The Republican Party does not appear destroyed, I have to say. I mean, the Republican Party is clearly not destroyed. It is horrible, but it is there. It is an organization that exists. They happen to actually be in power at the moment at various levels.
I've got so many friends on the left texting me and saying, David, we're not going to allow the same thing to happen on the left.
What?
That Trump did to MAGA.
Wait, okay. Okay, I want him... I hope he's going to go into detail here. Like, what is the equivalent thing on the left to fascism? To the just straight up, let's kill all the trans people, start wars everywhere, and just give everything to billionaires outright rather than doing it quietly like the Democrats like to do. Like, okay, what's the equivalent?
That Trump and MAGA did to Republicans, are we? Republicans, back in 2010, their leaders, laughed at the Tea Party.
No, they didn't. Their leaders organized the Tea Party.
Conspiracy theorists, they're far-right internet trolls.
No, God, he's talking about, okay, this chronology is bad. Because the people he's talking about are actually... That is a couple years later, that is the people who actually went immediately to the Trump campaign. The fucking Tea Party was 500 guys, and it turned out one survey showed that the majority of them, the overwhelming, most consistent occupations found amongst them were dentists and insurance salesmen. It was nothing.
Going to do anything. And then the Tea Party took over local organizations, threatened primaries, built...
They didn't threaten primary. Like, again, this whole thing was so completely sanctioned by the party leadership that when they had Tea Party events, there would always be speakers. Like, senior people in the party would show up to be the speakers. This was never an insurgent movement. Paul Street and Anthony DiMaggio at the time wrote one of the first really detailed studies of the Tea Party rebranding campaign called Crashing the Tea Party, and I highly recommend it because it debunks all of this bullshit. And he's just mixing up the Trump campaign and MAGA with the Tea Party.
Their own media universe, and eventually were part of a process that gave us...
Actually, they got it from Fox. I mean, they were in the same media universe as the fucking Republicans in general, namely Fox News, townhall.com, all that shit.
Donald Trump. The left and Democrats can't make the same mistake.
Okay, but what does that even mean? What is he calling the mistake?
There is a small group of far left extremists gaining influence inside youth groups.
Well, I mean, he's just doing a Red Scare here.
And party organizations, because they spend all day online organizing and enforcing ideological purity and attacking anyone who disagrees.
Bullshit. Okay, this is cute. I mean, see, he can't acknowledge that the reason that social democrats, that's the far left extremists he's talking about, are popular is in any way organic. Because if he acknowledges that the reason that this is an organic thing, that the reason they're popular is that they are simply speaking a language that appeals to most people, and certainly to most people who are at all ever likely to cast a vote for any kind of Democrat, then the entire thing falls apart. Yeah, I mean, and the trouble with, and the reason that never works for them is the reason that you can have a Joe Rogan on the far right is that the far right is actually kind of, for the most part, happy to let a guy like that, you know, they know he's got the right ideological commitments for their standards, and they will just kind of let him do his thing, whereas, like, the Dems, they want total control. If they don't control you, they don't want you to be talking at all. Like, that's why, I mean, early in the Biden administration, a whole lot of TikTokers, actually, sort of progressive TikTokers, played a major role in getting Biden in the first place. Disability, TikTok, and, like, yeah, stuff like that. And they were rewarded with a little bit of a seat at the table, like they got to be at the White House briefings and stuff occasionally. And then some of them published some fairly mild criticisms of things like the decision not to not do anything about the pandemic and stuff like that. And the response was to just completely ghost them. Just immediately just purge them with nothing more to do with them. You can't really build a media ecosystem that anyone wants to be with if all of it is complete, if there's no spontaneity in any of it, if there isn't at least some kind of individual style in it, if every single thing has to be totally controlled. I mean, talking points, yes. I mean, if you watch the far right media ecosystem, you'll see talking points get determined centrally for the most part. The agenda gets set centrally. The style varies widely.
Now let me be very clear. I am not talking about people who want Medicare for all and affordable housing. I want all that stuff. I'm with all that stuff.
Okay, so who are you talking about? What do these people want?
I'm a social democrat in the style of Northern Europe. Of course I want those things.
Oh, okay, which Northern Europe? A lot of people would include Britain and Germany and, like, the Netherlands in Northern Europe, and there's a lot of neoliberal shit going on in a lot of Northern Europe. I mean, even if you say Scandinavia, there is actually a fairly widespread, because there's all sorts of neoliberalism going on in Sweden, for example. Less so in Norway and Finland.
These are folks who treat political warfare like a full-time job. And when they can't...
So, like, people who take it seriously.
They attach themselves to popular causes.
Wait. So the idea is that these people don't actually... The people who have put... Let's just note that the reason Medicare for all is on the agenda at all is not because anyone in the Democratic Party wanted it to be. Because they oppose it. They oppose universal health care. It's why we don't have it. Even though they've had supermajorities more than once, they could have done it. I mean, for most of the past 50 years, it has been, the majority position has been to have universal public health care. But we don't have it. This stuff was forced on the agenda, and it was forced on the agenda by people who were obsessed with bringing these things, forcing these things onto the agenda, and organizing to build critical mass.
They take real concerns about healthcare, housing, police misconduct, and use them to sell what is actually an authoritarian worldview.
Oh, okay. What's the authoritarian worldview? Are we going to get anything? Are you going to give us more than fucking Van Jones did anyway?
Now, there are things in DSA, for example, Democratic Socialists of America, that are good and that I agree with. But there's also some stuff in there that I think doesn't make any sense.
Like what?
I saw their new platform. Promises a country where you have no debt, you pay no rent, no mortgage.
Is that actually in their platform? I mean, now I'm really curious. I mean, I think those are good things, and those are not at all impossible. Like, I mean, is he saying no debt at all? I mean, what is he saying? No private debt, no public debt? Or is he talking about housing debt? Is he talking about having a, just a massive public housing boom and just get decommodifying housing? Is that his bugaboo here? Is that the fucking boogeyman he's going for? Decommodifying housing?
You receive publicly funded housing, publicly funded retirement, food, education.
Like, okay, so I mean, he just said that he thinks that Northern European social democracy is great. This is northern. What they're talking about here is Northern European social democracy. We're talking about like Britain from about 1949 until like 1980. We're talking. This is the exact thing that he said he was for.
Energy, medicine, transportation, and it sounds incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something that in other countries they have, and it is great. It rocks. It's really nice not to have all these fucking private companies nickel and diming you for stuff that you just need in order to live.
Because it is incredible. How would they create it?
Well, I mean, you could look at. Oh wow, that's great timing because somebody right on the screen here has the answer here. They say you would make fucking rich people pay a whole bunch of tax. Yeah, you would actually make them pay tax at all. That would be a start of it. You would nationalize, I think he would probably claim not to, but his worldview is so completely neoliberal, it would be hard to see what he would disagree with.
Ownership of the largest corporations and of entire industries.
Well, that's good.
So rent control.
I mean, that's good. Like, okay, these are the authoritarian things. These are the things he's trying to scaremonger about. What fucking? I mean, he gets $8,000 a month from Chorus to spew this slop. I mean, if I got $8,000 a month, where rent control would probably not be high on my personal priorities either, because you can pay some rent out of $8,000 a month. But I guess when you've been on when you get the kind of money that you get when you do this kind of fucking lib slop and have the sort of deep pockets behind you that you have when you're David Pacman, you forget Or maybe you never knew how much of a fucking burden the rent is to most people. We're not getting, people are not getting paid anywhere near enough to live. Rent is now like more than half of what more than half of their income. Even the Reagan Democrats would be to the left of fucking Pac-Man. Even to some extent, the Clinton Democrats would be to the left of him on some stuff, because they've been moving right ever since.
Abolishing police and prisons and
wait a second. He's saying that it's authoritarian not to have the state have a goon squad that can beat the shit out of you if you do things the ruling class doesn't like. He's saying that not having prisons is authoritarian. Where's the authoritarianism come in here?
Abolishing the Senate and replace.
Okay, so again, he said that there was authoritarianism in here, and so far he's talking about dismantling anti-democratic and authoritarian institutions. I'm beginning to think he doesn't know what authoritarianism is.
Our political system. Abolishing the Senate and replacing our political system.
You mean maybe like having something democratic, for example? Because the political system in the U.S. is so great, how could anyone possibly want to replace it? Like, everybody wants to replace it. Virtually everybody wants to replace it. Nobody thinks highly of it, and I'm not talking about, that isn't a recent thing. That isn't a 2020s thing. That is something that you can find going back to the 80s at least, in polls and elsewhere, that people think that this political system is rigged, that it basically just does whatever the fuck rich people want. And the reason they think that is because that's true, actually. That is how the fucking system works. So, I mean, replacing the political system isn't authoritarian. You can, it depends what you're replacing it with, surely. So what do they want to replace it with?
Some of these ideas are reasonable to a degree.
This is Dave here realizing that he just listed out a bunch of things that even his viewers are probably saying, yeah, I want those things too. What's the fucking problem? Why are we supposed to be scared of these people?
For example, I support universal health care, and I've talked about 4 or 5 ways that we could get to it. I want affordable housing.
Just no rent control. What is affordable housing? Affordable is one of those words you got to watch out for. Because it doesn't mean shit. See, I mean, I remember first noticing this when there was all sorts of discussion around the Labor Party talking about they wanted to have affordable housing back in the mid to late 2010s. Very specifically avoiding talking about social housing. Because social housing is publicly owned, publicly managed, and is subject to a very specifically regulated rent that is lower than that is sub-market. But so when you say affordable housing, all housing is affordable to someone. Yeah, Pac-Man met Joe Biden. I mean, that speaks volumes. He's a DN. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because Biden didn't meet with just anyone. You had to really, for a one-on-one with him, you had to show some loyalty.
And I've done a dozen interviews with housing experts on what would and wouldn't work to get us
housing experts.
There. I support progressive taxation. We need to collect more taxes from the very rich. Voting rights have been hurt in this country. We need police reform.
Okay, so but what do all these things mean? What are you objecting to?
So there's elements of this that are great, and any social democrat like me will...
Yeah, if David Pac-Man approves of it, it's reasonable.
Handle it together. And this fantasy in which capitalism, private industry, and major parts of the government simply disappear.
Well, I mean, actually, everything he's described so far is not capitalism disappearing. It is just the U.S. having a form of capitalism that was very common in Western Europe for most of the post-war, for most of the second half of the 20th century. Literally none of the things the Labor Party until the early 1990s specifically had nationalizing what they called the towering heights of industry. And up until the 80s, actually, a lot of key industries were in fact national. I mean, mining was nationalized. Shipbuilding was nationalized. The railways were nationalized. I mean, a huge amount of housing was as well. The steel industry was nationalized, and there's a lot of that as well. I mean, a lot of these privatizations, apart from being disastrous, are recent. Well, that's the thing about police reform. It's such a useful thing because anyone who actually looks at it knows it does nothing. It achieves nothing. The reforms that, I mean, the cops don't even give a shit about the reforms. And some of the times the reforms are their idea, like with body cams, where the idea that it was an accountability measure came after. First, police associations were actually trying to get money to outfit themselves with body cams because it suited them to have them. And then somebody in the PR department worked out, if you want this to happen, you have to make it about accountability, and then people will buy.
Most Americans don't want that.
Most Americans don't want what?
Most Americans understand that there is no way that you could impose that without extraordinary authoritarianism.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's try that a different way, because at this point we have imposed a situation where a handful of people own most of everything and squeeze the rest of us dry while steadily eroding what few things are left of the victories of the early 20th century of the working class, while the cops constantly are just getting drowned in money, and the insurance companies get to do whatever the hell they want, and there's a genocide going on, and yeah, so tell me again how what's going on right now, the things that you're saying we shouldn't get rid of, can be, are not at all authoritarian.
My one hesitation
His
about
one
confronting
hesitation.
this now, and why I went back and forth,
Is because he realizes he will lose people over this. Because he avoids saying a lot of this stuff for the most part. And if he and he knows a lot of the people who watch him are assume that he's actually cool with this stuff. Not as, I mean, I'm not saying police abolition, but at the very least, the sort of social democratic stuff he was just condemning as authoritarian.
midterms, publicly exposing the rot could make moderate voters think the entire Democratic Party has been infected.
Wait, okay, the rot here, remember, is that there are some people trying to participate in Democratic Party primaries who espouse popular majority positions and are kicking the asses of these right-wing dickheads who are extremely well-funded and who are funded by the same people David Pakman is funded by, actually, which is why he's terrified of them losing. So the rot is the idea that there might be people in Congress, I guess, who would advocate the things that David Pakman says he's for.
But I don't think silence is really going to hide it. I saw a crazy thing from the weekend. Where
you saw a crazy thing.
There was a college Democrats convention, which I was actually invited to participate in, and I couldn't make it. Hassan Piker was dressed like Mao.
I mean, that Mao did not invent that suit. Actually, I believe it was Sun Yat-sen.
And
he's worn that suit before. This isn't the first time.
I guess Destiny tried to show up and he was banned from entering allegedly.
Well, because he's a neo-Nazi and a sex pest, like, he should fuck off.
Because the Mao-dressed Piker didn't want him there.
I think it might be that other people also didn't want him there. This is the first time hearing about any of it, but I would not actually be surprised if most people there did not actually want him there. Because, I mean, he was disgusting to begin with, but he was just, like, at this point, so fucking vile.
Republicans are going to put these clips everywhere. Like,
Well, wait, they're going to put clips of what? So that Sex Pestiny couldn't get into an event? Who cares?
people seem crazy when they see this stuff.
What people?
And they are going to take abolish the police and abolish
Okay, let's just remember that police I haven't actually heard anyone advocate, any of these DSA people advocating police abolition. The last time that I actually heard that even being part of discourse was during the 2020 uprising. This is from this year, I hasten to add, because you could hear this and think, wait a second, is this 2020 that he's saying this?
And abolish prisons and play them on a loop for 6 months. If
well, yeah, and it would freak out the people who vote for Republicans.
I were an average voter with no knowledge of these online personalities, which most of
the hilarious thing,
most people don't follow this sort of thing.
I mean, the hilarious thing is, it's true, actually. Most people had never heard of Hassan. And then the Democrats decided to start scaremongering about Hassan, which, like, 72%, I think it was, of the population had never heard of. And it was just an explosion of popularity for Hassan. Like, I mean, everybody, because they kept on being like, this guy says that there's a genocide going on in Gaza, and he thinks that Charlie Schumer sucks. He's a terrible person, you see. He thinks Charlie Schumer sucks, and he thinks there's a genocide in Gaza, and people were like, wait, we can watch this guy for free? And they, fucking Googling Hassan Piker. I mean, it is hilarious, because these people, I think genuinely that Pacman actually believes that he is channeling the average vote. He doesn't, if you looked at the polls, he would have a totally different idea of who the average voter even is. But these right-wing Democrats actually, they give up the game when they do that. Because they don't want the average member of the public to have a say in things, because they would have no place to go. But, with that wonderful freeze frame on the screen, it is time for me to wrap up. Thank you to everyone who joined in. It is great to see you as always. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and if you enjoyed the stream so much you'd like more, I will be back at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and I look forward to seeing you then. Have a good night. Wow, that is a wonderful freeze frame of him. I didn't do